Rabbi Friedman, hello. Thank God it's Tuesday. I'm so happy to have this hour, this opportunity to spend with you. And of course, we're so close to Passover. And for some reason, the popular thing is to be crazy over Passover. We get so nuts, so crazy, run around, clean everything, and the rabbis are just cheering us up on and saying, just do as much as you can, go as crazy as you can. That's a good thing. Is it a good thing for us to act crazy at any point of our lives?
I was just thinking about a contrast. Now, we have here in America Labor Day. Labor Day is a day where we do no labor. Right? We do nothing. In Judaism, we have the holiday and the festival of freedom. And we work so hard. This is our freedom. Our freedom is free to do as much as you can. Not like Labor Day, which means do nothing. So, there are people who work very, very hard. At what? Why? What for? And at the end of the day, what do they have to show? It's sad. When we finally get up and do something, it's good stuff. It's holy stuff. It's eternal. It brings only blessings to the world, never pain and suffering. We're good. We're good. God keeps us busy with good stuff.
Rabbi Friedman, but why are we getting so nuts? I mean, we're trying to, it's just during this 8 days, the world is different. And we are preparing for it for about a month, going absolutely nuts. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm running around the house with a toothbrush and cleaning light sockets, and it seems that the deeper you get, the harder you try, the better it is. Why?
Well, there is a precautionary note. What is the expression? Remember that dust is not chametz, and that your children are not the paschal sacrifice. So don't go looking for dust, and don't sacrifice your children during these days. On the contrary, the children should be very involved. Put them to work. Yes, we do seem to enter a time warp. Like it's a different world. But the feeling is, I am so free, nothing can stop me from going overboard, from being overly meticulous. Because I'm not so self-conscious. I'm free. If I was self-conscious, I would measure everything I do. Is it enough? Is it too much? Am I really that religious? Is it appropriate for me to be so religious? But when you're free of all that, you just do what you can. And it turns out we can do a lot. We surprise ourselves by how much we can do. So yeah, we get rid of that. It's like that famous story of the rabbi from Bardichev. He always argued with God in favor of the Jewish people. So one time, he asked his congregation the day before Pesach, he said, if anybody has any illegal scarves, silk was illegal. If anybody has any illegal scarves, please bring them to shul. And if anybody has a loaf of bread, please bring it to shul. Anyway, a couple of hours later, people arrived with baskets and trunks full of illegal goods, but nobody could find a loaf of bread because it was Erev Pesach. So the Berditchever said to God, do you see how devoted your children are? The Tsar has soldiers and patrol on the borders. There are fines, there are punishments, there's jail, there's even death squads if you happen to go against the rule of the land and smuggle in what isn't allowed. And yet, one way or another, everybody has a couple of scarves, a couple of cigars from Havana. But you said no bread without police and without soldiers and without borders and without... No bread is no bread. We're an amazing people. No question about it.
Rabbi Friedman, let's talk about the real deep meaning of Passover. There are so many lessons in Passover, but if we were to choose the main aspect of Passover, what would that be?
Freedom. That's what it's called. Zman Chayvusenu. It's the time of our freedom. An amazing kind of freedom. A freedom that allows us to out-survive everybody else. Free from some of the natural limitations that nature itself puts on nations and countries, people. Because by the laws of nature, we shouldn't be here. But we are free of the laws of nature, so we're here, despite nature. So you can say, well, that's a miracle. Our survival is a miracle. But if you're going to go that way, it's not one miracle, it's miracle after miracle after miracle. We survived Egypt, we survived Babylon, we survived Persia, we survived Germany, we survived every country we've been in, Spain. Every place we go, we need a miracle. You know, how many miracles can one nation have? It's only one miracle. We are not subject to some of the laws of nature. So it's not many miracles, it's one continuous miracle. We don't come and go like other nations. But that began with the exodus from Egypt. When we came out of Egypt, we came out of every restriction that could prevent us from being who we're meant to be. Even internal stuff.
Rabbi Friedman, but then if people look at us from the outside, they see us as the least free people on earth. We're not free to eat what we want or do whatever we want on Shabbos, or even now with the Passover, running around, separating everything, changing our house, spending so much time. And this is just for 8 days out of the year. And we're acting like crazy people, trying to do as much as we can and really don't have our regular life at the moment. So if people look at us from the outside in, they'll say that we're the least free people on earth.
It certainly looks that way. And sometimes it feels that way, depending on what you're seeing and what you're understanding. But we all know from hard personal experience, eating, sleeping, the things that we do, is that our freedom? We eat because we're free to eat. Not really. Eating has a terribly restricted and harsh control over our behavior. And so does sleep. And how many times do people resolve not to eat certain foods, not to overeat? Can't do it. There's food, and all of a sudden it's in your mouth. You don't even know how it got there. You were looking at it thinking, no. And all of a sudden, you're already swallowing it. You don't know what happened. So it's not that natural behavior is free behavior. It's programmed behavior. We eat instinctively, we sleep instinctively. All the pleasures that we indulge in, we really have very little control over. We're weak. It controls us. When you can simply turn around and say, everything I ate during the year, for 8 days, I'm not going to eat it. And not only don't you eat it, you don't miss it. That means you're not addicted. You are really free. You fall in love with somebody, deeply, deeply in love, or madly in love, crazy love. But then you find out he's not Jewish, so you don't marry him. That's freedom. Marrying someone you fell in love with, that's not freedom. You have no control. You are no longer making a decision. It has been made for you. So the ability to dance both ways. I'll eat when I want to, but when I'm not supposed to, I won't. I'll marry who I want, but if I'm not supposed to, then I won't. That's an incredible freedom. So we make this mistake thinking that if I can indulge every whim, then I am free. No, then I'm addicted. People are so programmed, so predictable. And it starts very young. You set out a table with certain snacks. You know exactly which one is going to go first, which one is going to be the most popular, and which one is going to be left over. Because people don't think when it comes to eating. It's impulsive, it's instinctive, it's reflexive. So real freedom means I can go either way.
Rabbi Friedman, is it absolutely necessary to be that precise and deep when it comes to Passover? I mean, to the point of pouring hot water over handles, which were touched sometimes with the hands that touched the bread, putting socks over faucets. So we're separating ourselves from our everyday life that we lead the rest of the year and go absolutely nuts. I mean, isn't this going overboard, or is it necessary?
Well, let's see what the opposite picture gives us. When I feel burdened or enslaved by demands, not slavery like in Egypt, but just demands, expectations. How sensitive are we then? In other words, how much burden does it take for me to be really, really crazy uncomfortable? You expect me to say hello every morning when I can't stand it. It makes me crazy. It's a normal thing, right? Stop expecting that from me. Leave me alone. Give me my freedom. All I'm asking is say hello. It's 2 words. Good morning. That's it. Yeah, but it's oppressive. Stop demanding it of me. So when it comes to feeling enslaved, tiny enslavements are so disturbing that it makes sense that when we get our freedom, we don't want even the smallest burdens. We don't want any of that enslaved life, even a hint of it, which could be crazy and dangerous, right? Like people who were overworked and all of a sudden they have free time, they become destructive. They don't know how to use their free energy. So it's dangerous in a sense to give people real freedom. That's why during holidays, there are more accidents and more deaths and more, the hospitals are busier. People have free time, they do terrible things. And that's why in some way it's better to be overworked than underworked. At least you're busy with something constructive. The miracle of our freedom is what Moshe said to Pharaoh. The God of Israel says, let my people go so they can serve me. Not let them go so they can riot in the streets. Not let them go so they can take revenge on anybody they don't like. No, let them go so that they can serve me. I have a job waiting for them. There's no unemployment in between. Only the job God has waiting for us is a much more pleasant job. So it works in both directions. Tiny enslavements are very uncomfortable. So when we have our freedom, we don't want to hear any of it. Not even a reminder. So we're crazy on both sides. We're extreme. Extreme enslavement, extreme freedom. And you see this all the time with teenagers. When they get their independence, by hook or by crook, they don't want to hear anything. I was once trying to negotiate with an angry teenage girl, trying to make peace between her and her mother. No, I'm not going to be observant, I'm not going to be religious, and I'm not going to keep Shabbos, and I'm not going to keep kosher. So, okay, all right, fine. What could you do for your mother? Could you at least dress modestly when you're home? No. Can you at least not bring non-kosher food into the house? No. Is there anything you can do for your mother? Some little thing. No. She can't control my life. I know she can't control your life. But is there one little act that you can do for her? No. And she's still angry that her mother is controlling her life. Your mother has no control over your life for the last 4 years. What are you screaming about? Well, it feels like she wants to. And even that's unacceptable. She thinks she can control me. Yeah, well, but she can't. Yeah, but she thinks. Oh, so that disturbs you too? Slavery is a horrible thing. So when we get free, we go to the opposite extreme.
Rabbi Friedman, you always say we have to be very, very careful about not being religious fanatics. But during Passover, that's contradictory because It is a fanatical holiday,
Yes,
and we're bidding fanatics.
but it's only 8 days. We can go a little crazy for 8 days. It's okay. We don't have to be enslaved by sanity. Sanity is not all it's made out to be either. So it's good to know that we're sane most of the year, but you don't have to be enslaved to it. By the way, did you notice what's going on in the world this last week? Did you notice how the evil is imploding?
Yes. Yes.
The pace has picked up.
Yes.
It's happening quicker.
So what do we have to look forward to?
The end of evil. And we don't even have to do anything to fight it. It's fighting itself. Yep. Very exciting time.
A year ago, you were very eminent about saying that the amazing part that whatever took place, all the changes that we incurred in our lives, which we're, of course, a year into now, happened between Purim and Passover. And you said that very many times that you see this as a very meaningful thing that has happened, that whatever change took place, it took exactly between Purim and Passover. Can you tell us why?
Did you notice that in this past year, Judaism has exploded all over the world? Judaism.
Yeah.
When's the last time that happened? So, I guess anything that begins on Purim or on Pesach is going to be good for Judaism. And it has been exceptionally good. We've made more progress in these 11 months than in the last 10 years. It's amazing. And now that Pesach is here again, it's going to be far more and much more obvious, much more visible. The word Pesach actually means to pass over, to leap over. Leaping over is not the normal way of progress. Progress means you walk along, you keep a pace, and you get there eventually. If there's an obstacle, you got to climb up the hill and then down the hill. Takes a little longer, slows you down. Pesach means if there's an obstacle, we just jump over it. No time for climbing, and because God jumped over the Jewish homes where they were firstborn, and only the firstborn of the Egyptians suffered. So he skipped over, he hopped over. That's a way actually of relating. In every relationship, there can be steady progress, small increments, a step closer, another step closer, and eventually you get there. Like the famous expression, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step, and then another step. And if you have enough steps, you've traveled 1,000 miles. But that's slow. That's a very natural path, where you got to abide by all the laws of nature, which slow you down. The miracles of Pesach, the exodus from Egypt, ignored all the laws of nature. For an enslaved people, under those circumstances and at that time, to get out of Egypt was physically impossible. They had set up a system when they decided to enslave the Jews. They set up a system that would guarantee that they could never, not even a single individual, can get out. Their situation was the opposite of our borders here in America. Can't keep people from coming in, but they kept people from going out. Very, very effectively and successfully. So a single slave could not slip away. 2 million? In order for 2 million slaves to be able to walk away, nature would demand 100 conditions. And it would take years. Moshe comes to the people and says, the first hint of any kind of thoughts of freedom, it is time for us to leave. There were 10 plagues. Each plague was a month. Not that the plague lasted a month, but there was only one plague per month. So 10 months later, they were out. This violates all the laws of nature. This is skipping over. This is like saying, never mind the laws of nature. We're getting out of here. That's a miraculous behavior. Not following the laws of nature. So if you're looking for a word to describe this holiday, freedom is the word, but how did we get that freedom? Miraculously. God simply reached out and took us out of Egypt. No other way to describe it. In fact, in that documentary, Patterns of Evidence, one piece of evidence that they found when they dug up the city of Goshen was that the entire population of the city, they estimate 30,000 homes, the entire population of the city disappeared overnight. It wasn't a gradual process. They were there and then they weren't there. And what else the evidence showed is that there was no war that made them leave. There was no plague in Goshen that made them leave. And there was no shortage of food. Because the grain bins and the wine vats are still full. Not edible, but they're full. Which means that the entire population left overnight and did not take any food with them. The whole thing was miraculous. Even the behavior of the Jews. Where are you going without food? Who does that? Who leaves a country without taking food? Particularly since you have to go through a desert on your way to Canaan land. Go without food, without water? It's miraculous. So I guess if you combine it, the holiday of Pesach is a miraculous freedom.
Rabbi Friedman, can we backtrack? I just want to make sure that we see everything that you're seeing, what is happening in the world. You're saying that you see how evil is accelerating and destroying itself. Can you tell us in which areas you see that happening?
Well, the dishonesty in government, to begin with, which, I mean, that was like a given. Of course, politicians are dishonest. So what? It's the way it goes. It's always been this way. All of a sudden, there's such an intolerance. Where is this coming from? Just starting here in New York. People are intolerant. Even of popular political leaders. So that's just one example. That all the nations that are making peace with Israel all of a sudden, why? Who did this? Who's running around making peace? Nobody. It's organic. And that is such good news. You know, if somebody had the scheme and he was negotiating and they were making deals, it would be the same garbage that's been going on for years. And who knows whether the deals will bring peace or the opposite of peace. But there are no deals. Nobody's negotiating anything. It's just happening. Of course, there's talk. You got to talk in order to open an embassy, whatever it is. But who started this quest for peace? Nobody.
Well,
it just became the in thing to do.
People will give Trump a lot of credit for starting the process, for opening up the conversations, but now it's in order mode.
Yeah. So the freedom to, I gotta tell you, I was speaking at a public school many years ago when I first came to Minnesota. I don't remember how I got invited to speak in public school. I don't remember what it was about. I'm sure I couldn't be speaking about religion. They wouldn't permit that. But whatever it was, I was speaking about. It just so happened that there were a lot of Jewish kids. This was in Minneapolis, the Jewish neighborhood. Almost the entire high school was full of Jewish kids. Just so happened that one of the mothers of a teenage girl was visiting the school, having meetings or something, and she heard that I was speaking for her daughter's class, so she sat in, curious. I don't know what her agenda was, but as soon as I finished speaking, she raises her hand. She says, "I have one question. Are you an American Jew? Are you an American first or a Jew first?" You can imagine what her agenda was. Like you're here to proselytize for Judaism?
Yeah.
This is America, you know. So she says, "Are you an American first or a Jew first?" So I laughed and I said, "A Jew first, of course." She said, "Well, what does that mean?" I said, "If I have to be an American first, I could have stayed in Russia for that." The greatness of America is that in America, you can be a Jew first. Not to the detriment of America. So that freedom, the freedom to be a Jew first, not just in America, everywhere. That's something in the heart of every Jew that was maybe missing for many, many years. All the years of oppression, all the years of discrimination, 2,000 years. That's a lot of pain. And the result is that after 2,000 years, you don't feel free to be a Jew first, no matter where you are. Maybe you wish you could, but you can't. That's the feeling that most Jews live with. Yes, I'm a Jew, and I'm a proud Jew. And I'll never apologize for it. But, reality dictates. You're where you are, you're living in the country you're living in, behave yourself. Fit in is more important than be a Jew. That's a little enslavement, isn't it?
Certainly is.
But in this past year, people feel freer. Maybe because they're not exposed to the streets or to the entertainment, to the media. So we can breathe more easily. And when we breathe easy, we find ourselves naturally Jewish and liking it.
Huh. Rabbi Friedman, I can't help but notice, but a lot of the holidays, usually I'm talking about not just Jewish holidays, Easter, Orthodox, Passover, they're all around the same time, even though they stand for completely different things, have different leaders, different aspects to those holidays, but yet they're always somehow around the same time. What do you attribute that to?
Well, to the simple fact that Christianity is a kind of a copy of Judaism, or at least that's how it started. Everything in Christianity is a version of something in Judaism. So it's not surprising that they would pick the same time of year to make a celebration. In one way, it was good for Judaism, and the other way, it was very bad for Judaism. Like Hanukkah. A lot of confusion.
Right.
A lot of Hanukkah bushes. Mixed up, confused. On the other hand, nobody needs to be reminded when Hanukkah is. A day before, a day after, but it's around that time. So when the Rebbe made that project of putting giant menorahs in every Jewish community, wherever Jews are, part of the argument that allowed it constitutionally, part of the argument that allowed large menorahs is that at that very same season, there are large displays of other religions. So how can you say no to Judaism? So that worked in our favor. But the similarities, they're just endless. When people say, Judaism is not the only religion that does such and such, Christianity does it too. Of course Christianity does it too.
It's just, how can it be so similar, but yet the end result is completely different? As far as I know, the Orthodox, Russian Orthodox right now are also having, going through cleansing, redemption, fasting in some certain way, but the end result is completely different, what we're going for. How can it be so similar yet so different? How did people come to that conclusion at the end?
I think a good analogy would be a ladder. There's a ladder. But there are people climbing up the ladder, and there are people coming down the ladder. But come on. The same ladder, and yet some go up and some go down? Shouldn't there be an up ladder and a down ladder? like the escalators? You can't go up or down on an escalator. You got to have an up escalator and a down escalator. So you got to have a Jewish religion that goes down and a Christian religion that goes up. But the same Bible and the same goes up and down? Well, that's confusing. So it's the same ladder, but for some reason, Christians are convinced that the purpose of the ladder is to climb up. We know that the purpose of the ladder is to bring heaven down. Maybe you got to climb up a little bit to grab heaven and schlep it down, but the purpose is to come down. And that makes all the difference in the world. If you're bringing God down, the world becomes better. If you're going up, you don't care much about the world. You want to get off and go to heaven, which is a much better place. So earth suffers. So if you have to kill somebody to save their soul, it's a good deal. That's not Jewish thinking.
Right. So, Rabbi Friedman, are we there yet? Passover is almost here. What can we be expecting as a world in this time or near time?
It seems like the process, now that we're talking about bringing heaven down to earth, the first thing is that if we want the world to be what it's meant to be, ideal, utopian, the first step is that in heaven it must be decreed that that should happen. And when it should happen. I think that's done. Heaven has decreed that it's time for the world to become godly. Now, it has to become a subject. Something you can talk about, something you can reason about, something you can sink your teeth into. The next step is, it's got to become a need, a want. We got to feel the absence of it, painfully. Like it should disturb us that it's not yet there. Then you take the steps necessary to make it happen. So you can't just go ahead and make it happen. It has to be approved in heaven. It has to be imaginable to our minds. It has to feel necessary to our hearts. And then we're ready to do something about it. So the Rebbe certainly was confident that in heaven it was already past. In our imagination, in our conversation, yes, we can talk about it, we can think about it, we can visualize it. And then we became a little upset that it hasn't happened yet. Impatient. So what's going on? So where is it? So why not? Now we're ready to actually do something about it. And we are doing something about it. So, what's left? What's left is for him to come. And that's good news. Because, 100 years ago, had we known, we would have realized there's 100 years worth of stuff that still has to happen before the coming becomes the next step. Today, Mashiach's coming is the next step. No further projects, no further activities. That's it. Time for him to come. Because all the other steps have been covered.
So that's it? Just wait around? Sounds like a plan, Rabbi Friedman. I think everybody is ready. I think everybody is ready, hopeful, anxious, and just feels like any minute. Certainly hope that that is the case.
So that's the positive side. There are people who are ready, people who are doing whatever they can to make it happen, people who are enthusiastic about the future. And then there are those who are so desperate that they're running in circles. There are those who are so desperate that in their attempt to make things better, they're making it worse. But they're desperate too.
Which is a better system?
You got to come from all directions. So when the Rebbe made that song, a children's song popular, "We Want Mashiach Now," we want. The Rebbe was not exclusionary. We want Mashiach. Who's we? The Rebbe and his Chassidim? No. The Rebbe would never separate himself or isolate himself that way from the rest of the community. We want Mashiach means everybody, including those who are in their confusion making things worse. But they're just as desperate. They just think they're being useful in some twisted way. But they're desperate. Everybody wants a new world. Is that not true? Everybody wants to reinvent life. Because everybody agrees that life that we had until now is just not worth it.
We're just very tired of where we are right now. We're just very tired of the crazy, the ridiculousness, the insanity that we're a part of right now. Everybody's looking at it as just a comic strip, and we're in it. And everybody, I think, is very ready for it to be over and done with the way it is. So I don't know. That's what it feels like. This is what I hear from the media, from the normal media, and from just people, regular people all around. I think everybody's on the same page now. So,
and I think everybody agrees that changing a detail is not going to solve the problem. It's the whole thing from the bottom up. In other words, what is life anyway? It's that fundamental. And where are you going to find an answer for that? Not in Reader's Digest. Not in Consumer Report. The only place to look for an answer is in the Torah. It's always been there, but we haven't appreciated it the way we should. But now we can.
Rabbi Friedman, and that's why we turn to you every week, and so grateful for this knowledge and wisdom, and thank you so much. Unfortunately, as always, we're out of time, and this is our last show before the Passover, holiday of Passover. And of course, I want to wish you, on behalf of our entire community, to you, your whole family, a very healthy and kosher and wonderful Passover. And thank you so much for everything that you're doing for the world today. I think you are just making such an impact for so many, and it's priceless. Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing it on our radio.
Just want to remind everybody, tonight and tomorrow is the Rebbe's birthday. It's a special day, and there's a special energy to it. And if you want to make a good resolution and be successful at it, tonight and tomorrow, that's the time. Because when the energy is available, you got to grab it. So Make good resolutions. The resolution alone makes the world better.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Friedman. Thank you. And be well. Happy Passover.